Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for techies and non-techies who work in the techie world whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We're here to provide solutions that will help both the techie and non-techie live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode from the Sanity Project podcast. I am the host, and I welcome you to listen to our amazing guest, and her name is Suzie Gruber. Suzie Gruber is going to talk to you today about patterns that we all have in our lives that interfere with our success. And this is only going to help you, as all my guests do. And I'm going to ask Suzie how she came to be a coach in the personal development world. How did you do that, Suzie? What was your path here?
My path was kind of interesting. I started out as a scientist doing hardcore research, but my first love was always psychology. So about 10 years, 15 years into a corporate career, I decided to go back to graduate school in psychology and follow my heart's desire, which was to help people have, better lives, essentially. And coupled with that was my own personal growth journey. I was raised by a very narcissist father, mom who struggled with addiction, and so it was a pretty tough combination for me. And so part of the motivation was also looking for something that would really help me improve my life and not be stuck with my own challenging patterns around, for example, wanting to hide and play small and that kind of thing, which I knew wasn't truly who I am.
Okay. Then what did you do?
So
Did you get a degree in psychology?
I got a degree in psychology, and I started to explore body-centered modalities and landed on the Neuroaffective Relational Model, NARM. And what I love about it is that it integrates both how we think about ourselves with tracking what's actually happening on a physical level. So we learn to track both our sensations and also our thought patterns so that we can really become fully integrated humans on a very deep level. And it really helps us unravel the internal dynamics that keep us stuck. So, it switches our orientation from there's all this stuff happening in the world and I'm trapped and I don't like it and can't do anything about it, to a very internal orientation of, okay, how that's all true. It may be true in a lot of circumstances, but how am I relating to that? Like what meaning am I making? How am I responding to that? What am I stopping myself in my tracks? Am I giving up? Or am I just, taking a more active approach of, okay, let's see what I can do here. Maybe there's another way,
So you're talking about going from a reactive experience to a non-reactive experience.
That's right. And
is that what NARM is about?
It is in part about that. It's really about really becoming full agents in our own lives, that we're not stuck in.
We're not stuck in our genetics, is what you're saying.
In our genetics, or in how other people in the world respond to us. Like, we don't have to make that mean anything about whether or not we should move forward or whether or not it's okay to like something that we want to do. And I would say it also really changes our relationship to trying things and failing at them, because any of us who are really stepping out in the world, whether it's in our business life or our personal life, we're going to fail at things. And it's how we respond to that really determines, in my opinion, how successful we can become. It's like, okay, well, I tried that and it didn't work. What did I learn? Rather than I tried that, I can't ever try anything again, which is definitely how I used to be oriented to the world.
Right. So do you think your quote-unquote narcissistic father's relationship with you was a big what do we say? I mean, he impacted you a lot.
Oh, for sure. For
Because
sure.
what I'm seeing you talking about here and what I'm writing down is that the narcissism is a factor in your life, whether you're trying to help people get over it, work through it, not react to others who are narcissists. And I know a few that they're terrible people. I mean, they just are bad. And, they're psychotics, so it's just very difficult to be in a relationship on any level with people like that. But more is the point is, how do you, I'm missing a link there between how people feel and how people think.
Yeah, and they're very tightly related.
Right.
Because, so to follow the narcissist thread, the child of a narcissist does not learn how to follow her own heart, and so there's a disconnection from the awareness of the heart's desire by necessity, because the child's in a family environment where survival means the child has to keep feeding the narcissist, which is, of course, a bottomless pit. So, and so the child has to stuff all these feelings, both related to her own joy, as in, I would really like this for myself, and also feelings of rage around how she's being treated. And so we come to believe, when we grow up in those sorts of environments, we come to believe certain things about ourselves, like, well, I'm just bad. Like, that was a big one for me, that I literally emerged out of my childhood thinking that there was something fundamentally badly wrong with me and that I was completely unlovable. So, that was a way that when a child grows up in an abusive environment, whether it's at the hands of a narcissist or other kinds of abuse, the only way a child has to manage that is to decide that it's their fault. And that's the thinking process that we have to unravel as adults when we experience these sorts of deficient and abusive childhoods.
Well, can you, obviously without naming names, can you give us an example from a recent client that you've worked with who was, I'll just use the word stuck, and who has a pattern that interferes with their own personal success?
I mean, I can use myself as an example. I mean,
whatever works best for you.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just looking to give the audience something that they can hold on to.
Sure, for sure.
I want somebody to say, oh, that sounds like me.
Absolutely.
That sounds like my husband or wife, or it sounds like my boss.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that they can say, aha, I have a recipe here and I can use this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, the biggest piece around my work life in particular was that I didn't want to be visible. I literally, when I started my practice, didn't even want to have a website because there was something so vulnerable in that I felt like if I had a website, it meant I was taking a stand, and that was a very dangerous thing because with my father, if I took a stand on anything, there was a very good chance I was going to get, verbally attacked for it. And so
he attacked you verbally, but psychologically, but not physically?
Thankfully, he did not attack me physically.
That might have been better.
Well, and you just named something that I think is really true, is that physical abuse is something we can point to, and emotional abuse is much more elusive, particularly when it's neglect. Right? So when there's an absence of caring or a deficiency in paying close attention to a child's needs, it's harder to see that inside ourselves, that, oh, that's what happened. And so that's part of my journey has really been, being willing to speak about those things and really working with my own internal fears around, okay, somebody might not like what I'm saying. And so that's true. There are people out there who might not at all, like what I'm saying, but it doesn't mean the same thing to me as a 53-year-old adult as it did when I was a 5-year-old child in a family where I needed these adults to survive. Right? It's not, the stakes are not the same, and that's a huge part of the healing process, is to recognize, oh, I'm actually in a very different environment, and when somebody dislikes me or something I say, it doesn't, or rejects me outright, it doesn't mean the same thing it did, when the risk of rejection from my family was.
Well, you have more of a sense of self now because
exactly,
but the work that you've been doing, and when you help others, you help yourself. So
for sure, but that sense of self came out of unraveling these old beliefs. It was not organic or just because I.
Right. Oh, I understand. Believe me, I've been there.
Yeah.
You have to work on it. You can't just think that, if I live a long enough life, things will get better. And they don't.
That's right. And also what I've uncovered is that when we have a mindset that's tied to our very survival, we can't just will it away. Right? We have to get clear. We have to explore, okay, what's actually driving this mindset? Or what's actually driving, for example, in my case, the desire to hide. So because otherwise we're setting up a dilemma inside ourselves of, okay, I want to be visible, but I don't want to be visible because it's not safe. So the old belief is it's not safe to be visible, and my heart's desire is to speak and write and be out there communicating about these things. And so we have to acknowledge both sides of it, or we're kind of, ignoring a big part of ourselves. And which actually, when we do that, when we keep ignoring and denying the part that's scared or afraid, we actually push it into the shadows, and it limits our creativity and our ability to engage in life and relate in a healthy way. So there's real importance in exploring, okay, what's driving this mindset that I don't like, or this pattern that's really interfering with this other thing that I want for myself.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to shine a light on that, because people have stories that they live with, and they might be true 100% or half of that, but the stories that they've created to protect themselves from the truth of their abuse, be it psychological or physical, creates more problems.
Yes.
Then you have to go back and tell you still have to tell the truth to yourself. Yes. You cannot get away from that, whether it's a story that you've created, someone else created for you, and you owned it or still own it. You still have to go back through. Fortunately, the newer layers can be thinner or lighter or more superficial, and then you can just pull them apart.
Yeah.
That's my perspective anyway. The new stuff that comes on, you can go, okay, that's not important anymore. What's important is the seed that was planted.
Yeah.
And that feeling of not being good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when we unravel that, there's often, buried emotions about what we experience. So for example, with me, with renegotiating what happened with my father and my mother, frankly, there was a lot of rage. There was a lot of rage that came up inside of me because of how I was treated. And so we have a way of working with that doesn't involve actually confronting, for example, elderly parents, which is of no use. I mean, it's disrespectful. In particular, if we have parents who haven't changed a bit or aren't available for deep conversation, it's not.
So are you suggesting? I don't mean to interrupt. Before, are you suggesting this work has to be done directly with the parents?
Not at all. I'm suggesting the opposite.
Oh, okay,
I'm suggesting the opposite. That when we, like, the perspective that I hold from NARM is that all emotions are a communication to our environment, and so when the way, for example, that I worked with the anger towards my dad was to really get in touch with, okay, what is this anger wanting to communicate? Well, it wanted to tell him to stop. And so when I can feel that and own the communication, then there's something that happens on a psychobiological level inside my being, inside my body, that allows that anger to actually complete, even though I haven't and won't ever express it directly to him. And that's very liberating. It's very, very liberating.
It's from my experience, to confront anybody is a mistake.
I agree.
And the parents or whoever it is, most of these people, most of it for them is their way of being. And they don't connect what they did with your pain, because your pain is yours, not theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since,
Yeah.
we create our own pain by the way we react from the time we're born, react and respond to things that are in front of us. And the first people, of course, are our parents or our parent substitutes. And, we connect with that and we believe everything they show and tell us because they feed us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's sleep and food and personal connections, and that's pretty much all we've got in this world. The reason, why we're here or what we're doing while we're here. So we have to own that, unfortunately, and that's, I think, what you've said is that's where the relief comes in.
Yeah. Is when we own it and move through what's left over. And there's also, along with anger, often comes the grieving process of coming to grips with, I'll never have the connection that I wanted with them. That's just not going to happen. And there is a loss there that I also have found on a personal level extremely liberating. When I grieve what I'll never have with them, it gives me the freedom to be much more present with what I'm creating here and now in my life.
So when you say you grieve the relationship you will never have with them, or you never did have with them, well, that never could have occurred.
That's right.
The relationship you're grieving, are you telling me you're grieving the relationship you never had or the relationship you did have?
No, the relationship I'll never have, because we as humans have a real strong tendency to, on a very unconscious level, keep trying to get that which we most wanted from them, right? That's something that is just inherent in how we operate until we make these things conscious. And in my opinion, it's what leads a lot of us to choose partners and of various kinds that end up mimicking, what we experienced as children. And so when we come to terms with what we'll never have and we feel the emotions associated with that, then our whole way of perceiving the world changes, and we stop choosing people that are such a reenactment of our old family environments.
And dangerous.
Often dangerous, yeah.
Because if you knowingly, because at that point you would be knowingly going back to get into a relationship, and then you're psycho too. So it's like you can't have people doing that. They have to have a way out.
Yeah, and you're really describing how generational trauma happens. We just keep passing this down and passing it down, and we have to have a way out. I mean, for many reasons, we have to have a way out.
Yes, but for our own sanity, because, in my book, even though there are things that cross my path, we have to come first.
Yes.
And that's hard for most people, except those who are trained to be selfish. But I'm talking about we have to come first in our own sense of self-care. And you are under that label of self-care, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
You are about self-care and how you can help people take care of themselves and break through. A name of my former business. I always name my businesses what I'm going through at the time, and that one was called Breaking Through. But people need to break through. It's just, especially if they're not content or happy or satisfied in their life. So what should people, let's say that clearly now. People are listening and they're going, gee, I wonder if I'm like that. So what should people look for in themselves to let themselves know clearly that they need to disconnect from generational trauma and move forward?
I would invite people to get curious about whether they have kind of an ongoing dissatisfaction with their life, if they're always feeling like they've never quite gotten to where they want to be. Whether it's professionally or in relationship. Do they find themselves reacting to situations in a way that's much bigger than what's called for? So, do I feel like blowing up when somebody cuts me off in traffic, or is it just, okay, I'm mildly irritated? Those are two big ones. I would also invite people to notice whether, like, how they treat themselves internally. Like, do they have do they criticize themselves a lot? Do they pressure themselves a lot? Do they leave themselves space for nurturing and downtime, or are they always on the run and always, trying to get the next thing done? Those are some big indicators that they might be operating from a place of leftovers from the past, rather than, okay, I'm creating the life and the environment that I want for myself in the present.
Yeah, and it goes in and out too. There are days, months, or even years, although that's sad, that people can feel good and then they go back again.
Absolutely.
It's like, for me, the other morning I woke up, I don't know, today's Wednesday, it might have been Monday, and I woke up on, let's just say that it was Monday. The days seem to run into each other. I think I woke up on Monday and I go, this is not going to be a good day. And, I kept trying to talk myself out of it. Not trying, I was talking myself out of it because I didn't know why it wouldn't be a good day. I had no particular, there was some sort of malaise that was over me that I said, something's off about this day. Now, I don't know if it was personal, but it affected me. It could have been the stars, it could have been the moon. I know there's Mars is floating around up there doing crazy things with Mercury and all of this stuff. And the only solution I had for myself, since I didn't have any other choices on Monday, was I was busy all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Very busy all day long, kept myself occupied. So I didn't have time to think, because thinking is a problem for me. I'm not talking about creative ideas that pop into my head, but they pop into a different part of my brain than the serious thinking. So whenever I get to seriously think, I read a book so that I can distract myself. But I couldn't read a book on Monday, so I just kept myself occupied with work.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I know better, so, I can.
And sometimes that's just how it is. We have commitments, or we just don't have the time to really create a space to look another layer in and go, okay, well, if I weren't keeping myself busy, what would I be feeling? Because I know for me, the impulse to be busy often means that there's an emotion lingering that I'm not giving airtime to, and so I try when I have the space and as consistently as possible to check in with myself and go, okay, what am I not letting myself feel here? And it's a way of deeply reconnecting with myself so that I can be more even and kind of present time. But sometimes that we can't. And I think that's an important statement, because we can use that as another way to beat ourselves up of like, oh, well, I just didn't do this for myself. It's like, and that's okay,
Well, I think a part of what you just said is a good ending to this time together, that people, what are they hiding when they're overworking or overdoing anything else to an extreme?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are they withdrawing? What are they not withdrawing from? What are they holding on to? What is their real fear that's under all of the emotional layers presented in this physical body?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that, Suzie?
The best way to get in touch with me is through my website at suziegruber.com, SUZIEGRUBER.com. And there you'll find more about my background, also blog posts related to this topic, and a way to reach out to me.
Well, that sounds great. I know that I think you have a blog, yes?
Mm-hmm, I do.
If people start reading your blog, they'll get more of an insights on you and your work. And I think that's important for people to know how they can find out more about you, but also to see how you work in this world and how you present yourself. And people like to see that. So we attract people who are similar to ourselves. So, people have to fit. And if there's a good fit, good. If not, that's another story. Well, I want to thank Suzie Gruber for being here today. This has been interesting information and also purposeful, people. So I can't tell you to leave a recommendation on iTunes anymore because that's gone. So I would just say once this, you're reading this now, pass it on to others. You're listening and reading and looking at all of the comments here on either your website, my website, Suzie's website, someplace else where this has been delivered. Pass this episode on to your friends, your coworkers, and have them listen to what's going on in your life and how they can help themselves. So I want to thank Suzie Gruber for being here today, and I wish everybody a great day. Take care. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Work-Life Balance. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.